The Civil Rights Act of 1964 prohibits workplace discrimination because of a person's sex. But does sex also include protections for sexual orientation and gender identity? That's the question the Supreme Court considered today as protesters on both sides of the issue rallied outside the court. Cronkite News reporter Hannah Ehrlich was there and brings us the story now from our Washington bureau.
Today was just the second day of this term, but the Supreme Court was already tackling what is expected to be one of the most emotional questions of its year on LGBTQ rights. That emotion played out on the plaza outside the court, where protesters on both sides of the debate spent hours today making their voices heard.
While legal arguments were going on inside the courtroom, a louder debate was going on outside. Social activist Ehrlich drove down from New York to make his voice heard.
And I want history to say that outside of this landmark case, there was this huge swath of queer brilliance.
Eli and other supporters of the LGBTQ community say they have a right to workplace protection, but that fewer than half the states recognize that right, which is why it's important for the Supreme Court to set a standard for the whole country.
There are 26 states in this country without explicit workplace protections for LGBTQ people. So you can get married in those states on Saturday and be fired from your job on Monday, and we have to correct that injustice.
They believe that the protections against sex discrimination under Title VII already cover LGBTQ individuals. But Christina Holcomb, who was here on the #SexNotGender side of the debate, says the wording of the law is plain.
American business owners should be able to rely on the law. And what the other side is trying to do in this case is essentially use the court system to redefine the word sex to mean gender. And if it's able to do so, that will create chaos in the law and frankly be harmful to women and girls across the country.
Tammy Fitzgerald, who is executive director of the North Carolina Values Coalition, says there is a difference between the terms sex and gender identity.
And yet we have groups, as you can see here, who are advocating that sex ought to mean gender identity and sexual orientation as well.
Phoenix resident Juan Hinojos disagrees. He hopes the court will rule in favor of the LGBTQ workers, but admits he's not at all sure how this court will rule.
Supreme Court conservative majority, it's kind of tough to tell exactly where this is going to go, but one can only hope, obviously, that it goes towards the way that we would like it to go, with a non-discrimination against LGBT people and trans people.
The court actually heard 3 cases today. 2 deal with sexual orientation of workers in New York and Georgia. The third concerned a transgender worker at a Michigan funeral home. Rulings are not expected in any of the cases for several months. In Washington, Hannah Ehrlich, Cronkite News.